microliter. Hemoglobin, which is found inside the red blood cells, that's going to be approximately from 13 to 16 grams per deciliter, as you can see right here. Hematocrit is the volume of red blood cells in blood expressed as a percentage. And it varies in males and females, and it's more or less approximately 38% in the case of males and 36% more or less in the case of females. If we look at the white blood cells, the white blood cells are going to be approximately from 4,000 to 10,000 cells per microliter. And in the case of the platelets are going to be approximately from 150,000 to 450,000 cells per microliter, as you can see right here. So one of the reasons why the blood is, for example, red is because, as you can see here, these cells, the platelets are in the thousands, the white blood cells are in the thousands, right? But if you look at the red blood cells, they are going to be in the millions, as you can see right here, millions. Okay, and that's one of the reasons why, obviously, the blood is red, because there's more red blood cells than other type of cells in our blood. Where do all these cells come from? Well, in our body, they come from our bone marrow, as you can see right here. This is the bone marrow, the red blood marrow to be more specific. You have only one type of red blood cell, one type of platelet, but there are 5 different types of white blood cells, as you can see right here. These white blood cells that you find right here are not the only types of white blood cells that we have, but these are the ones that are going to be circulating in our blood. These are going to be lymphocytes, monocytes, eosinophils, basophils, and neutrophils. When we look at the white blood cells with a little bit more detail, we can see that they can be separated into groups. The ones that have granules, like these ones, they have granules. Right? As you can see right here, they're very, very easy to see right there. Those are granules. And the ones that do not have granules, which are going to be these ones. The ones with granules are going to be the eosinophil, basophil, and the neutrophil, EBN. Those are going to be the granulocytes. And the agranulocytes are going to be the monocytes and the lymphocytes. The reason why there are 2 figures in here for the lymphocytes is because there are 2 kinds of lymphocytes. One of them is going to be lymphocyte T, and the other one is going to be the lymphocyte B. If we look at these white blood cells with a little bit more detail, you can see in here that the 5 different types. And one of the reasons why we have 5 different types is because they are going to perform different functions as part of the defenses of our body. For example, the neutrophil is in charge of destroying bacteria, as you can see right here, and fungi as well. But if you look right here, the lymphocyte, what it's going to do is going to produce antibodies, lymphocyte B. So as you can see here, we have all these different types of cells because they're going to perform different functions as part of the entire immune system that we have in our body. And the immune system is the mechanisms that we are going to use in order to defend our body against bacteria, for example, that may cause an infection in our body. Another very important to look in this graph is the amount of white blood cells that we have. If you look over here, the neutrophils is the most abundant white blood cell that you can see in a blood smear. You can see right here, it represents approximately 60%, while the least abundant is going to be the basophil. As you can see right here, it only accounts for 0.4%. The next 4 element that we're going to find in blood is going to be the platelet. The platelet itself is not a cell, but rather it's pieces of other cells. These other cells are going to be the megakaryocyte. Obviously, mega means huge or big. And you can see that in this figure, where you have in these red circles what the megakaryocyte is. And indicated by the yellow arrow, that's a red blood cell. This one right here, only this little piece right here, that's a red blood cell. Compare that red blood cell to this big cell that you have right here, and that shows you why they are called megakaryocytes. As a matter of fact, you can see another one right here. So then it's called mega because they're going to be humongous compared to this tiny cell right here, which is a red blood cell. So what is a platelet? It's basically pieces of cytoplasm that are going to be broken off from the megakaryocytes, therefore giving us the platelets. If you click over here, you come in here a comparison between the actual size of a red blood cell and a platelet, where you can see the platelets are very, very tiny actually compared to the red blood cell. So, but again, platelets are pieces of the megakaryocyte. The job of the platelet is to be part of the entire mechanism that our body is going to use in order to stop bleeding. That process is called hemostasis. Hemostasis, or stopping our blood from coming out from our body, basically, consists of three steps: vasoconstriction, platelet plug, and coagulation. Platelets work only on this second step right here, platelet plug. There are other details that are related also to vasoconstriction and coagulation, but one of the main jobs of the platelets, at least in coagulation, is going to be the formation of the platelet plug, which is one of the steps in hemostasis. The next foreign element that we have in our blood are going to be the red blood cells. The red blood cells are found obviously in our body, right, in the human body, and it's similar to other cells in the sense that they also have a cell membrane, as you can see right here. This is a normal cell, right, more or less the way it's represented most of the time, where you have a cell membrane. But in addition to that, you're going to have the middle part right here, which is going to be the nucleus. And not only has a nucleus in there, but it also has these blue structures right here, which are going to be the mitochondria. Then what is the difference between most of the cells that you have and the red blood cell, which is this one right here? That the red blood cells do not have nucleus. As you can see right here, there's no nucleus in there. And they doesn't have mitochondria either. So that's a big difference between a regular cell that you can find, for example, in your liver, and a cell that you have in your blood. So these red blood cells don't have nucleus, do not have mitochondria. So if they don't have the nucleus and they don't have the mitochondria, what do they have instead? Well, they're going to have this structure here called hemoglobin. In addition to that, the red blood cells also have an enzyme that is very important, that is going to allow the red blood cell to perform the jobs or the functions that it needs to perform. So then, what are the jobs of the red blood cell then? Well, since we mentioned that it has hemoglobin, then the hemoglobin will allow the red blood cell to attach to oxygen, therefore allowing the red blood cell to transport the oxygen. So in other words, again, the red blood cell contains hemoglobin, the oxygen attached to the hemoglobin, therefore the red blood cell is capable of transporting the oxygen, as you can see right here. This is the oxygen right there. Okay, then the other function we said is the presence of an enzyme that will allow the blood or the red blood cells to control or regulate pH. So what is the name of this enzyme right here in blue that will allow us to have this type of chemical reaction right here that will help us control pH? This chemical reaction is controlled or is catalyzed by this enzyme called carbonic anhydrase. So to summarize then, what are the functions of the red blood cell? Well, the red blood cell is going to have two main functions. One of them is the ability to transport gases, such as, for example, oxygen. What allows the red blood cell to transport oxygen? The presence of hemoglobin. What's the other function? Very important function is going to be to regulate the pH. And how is it that the red blood cells are going to be able to control the pH? Because the red blood cells contain this enzyme called carbonic anhydrase. To summarize everything that we have covered, so we said that the blood is composed of two main parts, plasma and form elements. The form elements are going to be the cells that we have in our blood. They are going to be erythrocytes or red blood cells, leukocytes or white blood cells, and platelets. The job of the red blood cells is going to be to transport gases such as oxygen because of the presence of hemoglobin, as well as to help us control pH because of the presence of the carbonic anhydrase. Leukocytes, we mentioned that there are 5 different kinds: basophils, neutrophils, eosinophils, monocytes, and lymphocytes, and they're going to defend our body as part of the immune system that we have. And the platelets are going to work in hemostasis by creating the platelet plug. Plasma, it's going to be composed of water and other substances, in particular protein. Water represents 92% of plasma, approximately, and 7% is going to be proteins, while 1% is going to be other substances. Of the entire blood, 45% is represented by the form elements, and 55% is represented by plasma.